I live in a house of rules. That's not some metaphor or cute way of saying I have strict parents. No, I mean it literally. I live in a house that has its own rules, and if I don't follow them, well, let's just say the consequences are severe. I should explain from the beginning. My name is Alex Parker. 3 months ago, I moved into flat 27 at Willow Creek Apartments. It was supposed to be a fresh start, you know? I'd just landed a promotion I'd been eyeing for years at Grayson and Associates, a marketing firm in the city. The pay bump was substantial, but so was the workload. I needed a place closer to the office to cut down on my hellish commute. When I found this place, it seemed perfect. Well located, within my budget, and despite being a bit run down, it had potential. It's a duplex apartment with a guest room and spare bathroom on the ground floor, and a dressing room with several storage rooms upstairs. The previous owner had apparently vanished. At least, that's what I gathered from the mountain of mail I still receive in his name. Mr. Edward Holloway. I often wonder what happened to him. Did he simply move away, forgetting to leave a forwarding address? Or did something more sinister occur? Sometimes, in the dead of night, when the house is at its most oppressive, I imagine I can hear whispers. His whispers. Warnings, perhaps, or pleas for help that came too late. The purchase was a nightmare of red tape and bureaucracy. What should have taken a month dragged on for 4, mostly due to lost paperwork and missing floor plans. During that time, I viewed the property several times, and each visit left me more confused than the last. Windows appeared where there were none before. Cupboards materialized out of thin air. Even the estate agent, Sandra, seemed baffled by the constant changes to her listing documents. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. Should have trusted that nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach every time I stepped through the front door. But I was so focused on the future, on what this place represented. Independence, success, a new chapter in my life. I ignored the warning bells, chalked up the strange occurrences to stress and an overactive imagination. God, what a fool I was. When I finally moved in, I was eager to meet my neighbors. I've always been a social butterfly, and I thought it'd be nice to have some friendly faces around. I printed out invitations for a housewarming party, slipped them under every door in the building. I bought snacks, chilled some beers, even made my famous 7-layer dip. Not a single person showed up. I remember standing in my living room that night, surrounded by untouched food and decorations, feeling a mixture of disappointment and unease. The silence in the building was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of settling wood or the distant hum of traffic outside. As the hours ticked by, I found myself jumping at every little noise, half expecting someone to finally show up, half dreading what might come through the door if they did. At first, I chalked it up to busy schedules or maybe just antisocial neighbors. But as the weeks passed, I started to notice things. Weird things. The neighbors never seemed to leave their apartments. They'd come home at the exact same time every day, like clockwork, and then nothing. No sounds of TVs, no music, no footsteps. It was as if they ceased to exist once they crossed their thresholds. There was one neighbor, though, who broke the mold. A nervous-looking man from the floor above mine. I think his name was Trevor. He approached me in the hallway about a week after the failed housewarming, wringing his hands and glancing around like he expected someone to jump out at any moment. "I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your party," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm not allowed to. I laughed, thinking he was joking. What? Is your wife keeping you on a short leash? He didn't laugh. Instead, his face went pale and he backed away like I'd threatened him. No, it's not that. It's just, there are rules, you know? We have to follow the rules. Before I could ask what he meant, he'd scurried back up the stairs, leaving me standing there with a growing sense of unease. That was the last time I saw Trevor. Sometimes, late at night, I think I can hear muffled sobbing coming from his apartment. But I've learned not to investigate strange noises in this place. It was about a month into my tenancy that I started to understand what Trevor meant about the rules. It began small, almost imperceptible. I fell asleep on the couch one night while binge-watching a new series on Netflix. When I woke up, my arm was trapped between the sofa and the wall. A wall that I distinctly remembered being several feet away when I'd dozed off. Panic gripped me as I struggled to free myself. The room felt wrong somehow, hostile. It was as if the very air was thick with malevolence, pressing down on me, urging me to leave. When I finally managed to wrench my arm free, I bolted upstairs to my bedroom, diving under the covers like a scared child. My heart was racing, thoughts tumbling over each other in a frenzied rush. Had I dreamed it? Was I losing my mind? I lay there for hours, every creak and groan of the house making me flinch. When dawn finally broke, I crept downstairs, half expecting to find the living room transformed into something unrecognizable. But everything was normal. The couch was where it should be, the wall a respectable distance away. I tried to rationalize it as I got ready for work. Maybe I'd just been disoriented from sleep. Maybe I'd had too much to drink. But deep down, I knew. Something wasn't right in this house. The incidents escalated from there. One night, I accidentally fell asleep on the couch again. This time, I woke to find my own sweater tied tightly around my neck, leaving angry red marks on my throat. The message was clear. Sleep only in your bedroom. I remember staring at myself in the bathroom mirror that morning, tracing the red marks with trembling fingers. My reflection looked back at me, pale and wide-eyed. Who did this? How? A part of me wanted to call the police, to report a break-in. But what would I say? Officer, I think my house is trying to strangle me. They'd cart me off to the psych ward before I could finish the sentence. No, I was on my own. And I was starting to understand that this house had expectations, rules, and the consequences for breaking them were unpleasant. Other rules made themselves known in equally unpleasant ways. I learned to clean my dishes immediately when I sat on a safety pin jutting out of my couch after leaving a dirty plate in the sink. The sharp pain as it pierced my skin made me yelp, jumping up to find the offending object. As I plucked it out of the cushion, I could have sworn I heard a faint, satisfied whisper in the air around me. Clean up after yourself, it seemed to say. Or next time, it'll be worse. I discovered the importance of short showers when the water suddenly turned scalding hot and refused to turn off until I was a sobbing, scalded mess on the bathroom floor. The pain was excruciating, steam filling the small space as I frantically tried to turn off the taps. But they wouldn't budge, no matter how hard I twisted. It was only when I'd been driven out of the shower, my skin an angry red, that the water finally shut off on its own. Keep the place tidy. Don't waste electricity. And above all else, never ever investigate strange noises at night. That last rule was the hardest to follow. My curiosity warred with my growing fear, especially on nights when the noises were particularly bizarre. Once, I heard what sounded like a child's laughter echoing from the guest room downstairs. Another time, it was the distinct sound of glass shattering, followed by a heavy thud. Each time, I had to fight the urge to go check, to prove to myself that I wasn't going crazy. But the one time I did give in to that urge, creeping down the stairs to investigate a sound like furniture being dragged across the floor, I was met with a sight that still haunts my nightmares. The living room was wrong. The proportions were off, the ceiling stretching impossibly high, the walls warped and twisted, and in the center of it all, my furniture was indeed moving, all by itself. Chairs slid across the floor in a macabre dance. The couch folded in on itself like origami. The coffee table spun like a top. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a whimper. I'm not sure. But suddenly, everything stopped. The room snapped back to its normal dimensions so quickly it made my head spin. And then, slowly, every piece of furniture turned to face me. I swear I could feel the weight of a dozen unseen eyes boring into me. I ran back to my room and didn't come out until morning. After that, I tried to be good. I really did. But there was a part of me, a stubborn, defiant part, that rebelled against the idea of being controlled by my own home. I'm not usually one to be pushed around, and the idea that my own home was trying to control me was infuriating. So I pushed back. I stayed up late, played music at full volume, left lights on in every room. For a while, nothing happened. The house remained quiet, almost docile. I thought I'd won. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday night. I remember because I had a big presentation at work the next day. I'd been up late preparing, fueled by coffee and nervous energy. As I finally crawled into bed around 2 a.m., I caught a whiff of something odd. Gas. My first thought was to call the gas company, but as I reached for my phone, the smell intensified. My head started to spin, nausea rising in my throat. I barely made it to the window, fumbling with the latch as my vision blurred. The last thing I remember before passing out was the cool night air on my face and the distant wail of sirens. I woke up in the hospital. Severe gas inhalation, they said. If I hadn't opened that window when I did, I might not have made it. The gas company found no leak in my apartment, no explanation for what had happened, but I knew. The house had made its point. As I lay in that hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and an oxygen mask, I had a lot of time to think. About the house, about the rules, about my own stubbornness. Was this really happening? Was I losing my mind? Or was I truly living in some kind of sentient, malevolent building? I thought about moving out, just packing up and leaving in the middle of the night. But something told me it wouldn't be that easy. The house had chosen me for whatever reason. I didn't think it would let me go without a fight. So I made a decision. I would play by the rules. I would be the model tenant. Maybe, just maybe, if I was good enough, the house would ease up, would let me live some semblance of a normal life. After that, I developed routines, like my neighbors. Wake up at 6:30 a.m., shower for exactly 7 minutes, eat breakfast standing up in the kitchen, wash the dishes immediately, leave for work at 8:15 a.m. sharp, return home at 6:45 p.m., no music after dark, lights out by 11 p.m. It was suffocating, living like this. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. But the alternative? Well, I didn't want to think about the alternative. The worst part was the loneliness. I've always been a social person, but now I found myself isolated. I couldn't invite friends over. The one time I tried, it was a disaster. My college buddy, Mike, had practically invited himself, wearing down my defenses with promises of pizza and beer. "Come on, Alex," he'd said, over the phone. "I haven't seen you in months. One weekend won't kill you." If only he knew how wrong he was. I spent days agonizing over whether to let him come. On one hand, I was desperate for some human contact, for a slice of normalcy. On the other, I was terrified of what the house might do. In the end, my loneliness won out. I agreed to let Mike stay for the weekend. From the moment he arrived, I was a nervous wreck. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the light sent my heart racing. I kept waiting for something terrible to happen, for the house to lash out at this intruder in its domain. Mike noticed my odd behavior, of course. "Dude, are you okay?" he asked more than once. "You seem really on edge." I brushed it off, blamed it on work stress, but I could tell he wasn't buying it. I caught him giving me concerned looks when he thought I wasn't watching. It made me wonder, how much had I changed since moving here? Was the Alex that Mike knew even still there? But nothing happened. The house remained eerily quiet, almost too quiet. It wasn't until Mike left that I realized the true cost of my defiance. The headache started small, just a dull throb behind my eyes. Within hours, it had blossomed into a full-blown migraine. Nausea followed, then dizziness. I thought I had the flu at first, but as the symptoms worsened, a terrible suspicion began to grow. I managed to drag myself to the basement, following my nose to the acrid smell of gas. The leak was small, barely noticeable, but it had been going for who knows how long. I only just made it out before succumbing to the fumes. That was the last time I ever invited anyone over. Living alone in a house that seems to have a mind of its own does strange things to a person. I find myself talking to the walls sometimes, pleading with them, bargaining. "Just let me have one night of peace," I'll whisper into the darkness. "I'll be good, I promise. Just, please." The house never answers, of course. But sometimes, I swear I can feel it listening. There are moments when I think I'm going crazy, when the isolation and the constant vigilance become too much to bear. I've started having conversations with myself, just to hear a human voice. Sometimes I catch my reflection in a mirror or a window, and for a split second, I don't recognize the person staring back at me. Pale, gaunt, with dark circles under my eyes and a perpetual look of fear etched onto my face. Is this what the house is doing to me? Slowly eroding away everything I am until there's nothing left but an empty shell. Another silent tenant obeying the rules without question. The physical changes to the house are the most unsettling. Walls shift in the night, expanding or contracting rooms at will. Doors that were there one day are gone the next, only to reappear somewhere else entirely. The number of windows in my bedroom fluctuates. I've counted as many as 7 and as few as 1. I remember the first time I noticed a major change. I woke up one morning and stumbled to the bathroom, still half asleep. It wasn't until I was washing my hands that I realized something was off. The bathroom mirror was on the wrong wall. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, Sure, I was seeing things. But no, the mirror had definitely moved. And not just a little. It was on the opposite wall from where it had always been. I spent an hour that morning just staring at that mirror, my mind racing. Had I somehow misremembered its location all this time? Or had the house changed it overnight? And if it could move a mirror, what else could it do? There's a cupboard at the top of the stairs that seems to have a particular grudge against me. Its size changes regularly, sometimes barely big enough to hold a mop, other times stretching back farther than should be physically possible. One night, driven by a mix of curiosity and desperation, I decided to explore this ever-changing cupboard. As I stood before it, my hand hovering over the doorknob, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. A voice in my head screamed at me to turn back, to go to bed and forget this foolish idea. But another part of me, the part that was tired of being afraid, urged me on. I needed to know. I needed to understand. With a deep breath, I turned the knob and pulled the door open. At first glance, it looked normal. Just a small, dark space filled with cleaning supplies and old boxes. I stepped inside, my hand fumbling along the wall for a light switch. That's when it happened. The door slammed shut behind me with a force that shook the entire cupboard. I spun around, reaching for the doorknob, but my fingers grasped only smooth wall. The door was gone. Panic surged through me as I found myself in utter darkness. I groped blindly for walls that should have been there but weren't. The space around me felt vast, endless. I couldn't tell if I was in a tiny closet or a cavernous room. My breath came in short, sharp gasps as claustrophobia and agoraphobia battled for dominance in my mind. "Hello?" I called out, my voice embarrassingly small and trembling. Is anyone there?" Only silence answered me. But it wasn't a comforting silence. It felt alive somehow, watchful. I could almost feel unseen eyes on me, observing my fear with cold curiosity. Time lost all meaning in that endless void. I stumbled forward, my hands outstretched, touching nothing but empty air. Thoughts raced through my mind, each more terrifying than the last. Was this how I would die? Alone in the dark, trapped in an impossible space within my own home? Would anyone even notice I was gone? Just as despair threatened to overwhelm me, my trembling fingers brushed against something solid. Wood. A door. Hope surged through me as I frantically felt around the edges of the door, searching for a knob. When my fingers finally closed around cool metal, I almost sobbed with relief. I turned it and pushed, bursting out of the cupboard and falling to my knees in the hallway. I knelt there for what felt like hours, gulping in air and trying to slow my racing heart. When I finally found the courage to look up, I saw that the cupboard door was closed. It looked perfectly normal, as if nothing had happened. But I knew. The house had made its point. Some doors are not meant to be opened. The psychological toll of living here is immense. I've woken up to find chairs from the dining room sitting at the foot of my bed, silent sentinels watching me sleep. The first time it happened, I screamed myself hoarse, certain that an intruder was in the house. But as it happened again and again, I began to understand. It was the house. Always the house. I've walked into rooms to find new closets or doorways that I know for a fact weren't there before. The staircase seems to grow and shrink at will. I've counted anywhere from 12 to 20 steps on different days. Time behaves strangely here too. I'll enter a room looking for something, only to emerge hours later with no memory of what I've been doing. It's like the house swallows chunks of my life, leaving me disoriented and afraid. These time slips are perhaps the most terrifying aspect of living here. There's something profoundly unsettling about losing parts of yourself, about having gaps in your memory that you can't explain. I've started keeping a journal, trying to document everything that happens. But even that isn't foolproof. Sometimes I'll open it to find entries I don't remember writing, in handwriting that's almost, but not quite, my own. Work has become my only refuge, the only place where things make sense. I throw myself into projects, volunteer for extra hours, anything to stay away from the apartment. My colleagues have noticed the change in me. They comment on the dark circles under my eyes, the way I jump at sudden noises. "You okay, Alex?" My coworker, Sarah, asked me the other day. "You seem different lately." I wanted to tell her everything, to pour out all my fears and experiences, to beg for help, or at least understanding. The words were there, on the tip of my tongue. "I'm not okay," I wanted to say. "I'm living in a nightmare, and I don't know how to wake up." But I knew how it would sound. Crazy. Delusional. And some deep, instinctive part of me worried that if I told anyone, the house would know, that it would punish me for breaking my silence. So I just forced a smile and blamed it on stress from the new position. "You know how it is," I said with a laugh that sounded hollow even to my own ears. "New job, new place, still adjusting." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push it either. As she walked away, I felt a pang of loneliness so acute it was almost physical. I wanted so badly to reach out, to connect with someone. But the house had isolated me more effectively than any prison ever could. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I did tell someone. Would they believe me? Would they try to help? Or would I end up in a padded room, drugged into complacency while the house continued its reign of terror unchecked? I've thought about trying to gather evidence, setting up cameras, recording the changes. But something always stops me. The batteries in my phone die unexpectedly. The camera refuses to turn on. It's as if the house knows what I'm trying to do and is actively working against me. As I write this, it's getting dark outside. I should be turning off my computer soon. No loud noises after dark is one of the strictest rules. It's the one I hate the most because it amplifies the loneliness, the isolation. In the silence, my thoughts become too loud, too intrusive. I've had to turn off the TV. All channels have devolved into static except for National Geographic, which is playing a documentary about carnivorous plants. I try not to draw parallels between my situation and that of the helpless insects trapped in those colorful, deadly blooms. It hits too close to home. The remote doesn't work anymore. I had to physically unplug the TV to turn it off, and even then, I was terrified it might stay on. I don't know what I would have done if those images had continued playing on a disconnected television. Probably finally lost what's left of my sanity. As I sit here in the growing darkness, I can feel the house settling around me. The walls seem to press in closer. The air grows thick and heavy. It's watching me, I know it is, waiting to see what I'll do next. Sometimes, in my darkest moments, I think about rebelling again, about pushing the neighbors to talk, about breaking every rule I can think of. I've even fantasized about burning the whole building down, watching the flames consume this prison of shifting walls and impossible spaces. But I know I won't. The punishments for small infractions are bad enough. I shudder to think what the house might do if I tried something so drastic. The occasional demonstration of strength, the enforcement of the rules, the mild punishments when I step out of line, that's bearable. Barely. There are other punishments, though, ones I can't bring myself to describe, even here. The scar on my back will be with me for the rest of my life. A constant reminder of what happens when the house feels it really needs to teach me a lesson. I trace my fingers over that scar sometimes, feeling the raised, twisted flesh. I try to remember how I got it, but the memory is hazy, obscured by a fog of pain and terror. I remember screaming. I remember blood. I remember feeling like I was being torn apart from the inside out. But the details are mercifully blank. So here I am, writing this confession? Plea for help? I'm not even sure anymore. I know I can't directly ask for help. I can't risk the house finding out. But maybe, just maybe, someone will read this and understand. Maybe they'll find a way to reach out, to offer the lifeline I so desperately need. I'm scared. Scared of what touched my face 2 nights ago after I accidentally left the tap running, leaving bruises that still throb when I touch them. Scared of what left a pair of scissors in my slippers this morning. Scared of the power that can move walls and doors on a whim. But most of all, I'm terrified that by writing this, I've sealed my fate. That I'll wake up tomorrow in a room with no doors and no windows. A room that gets smaller every time I blink. If you're reading this, please, help me. Find a way. Before it's too late. Before the house decides I've broken one too many rules. Before I disappear, like Edward Holloway before me, leaving nothing behind but a pile of unopened mail and a mystery for the next tenant to unravel. The sun has set now. I can feel the house settling around me. Watchful, waiting. I should go to bed soon. Follow the rules. Be a good tenant. But as I prepare to close my laptop and face another night in this place, a small, defiant part of me hopes that someday, somehow, I'll find a way to break free. To leave this house of rules behind and reclaim my life. Until then, I'll keep following the rules. I'll be quiet, obedient, unobtrusive. I'll be the model tenant. Because in a house like this, the alternative is too terrifying to contemplate.